Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of GeoPod. I'm your host, Dylan Woods. We have a lot to discuss today, a lot of things that have occurred over the course of the past month. I haven't been able to record as much as I would have liked due to personal circumstances. But I'm here now and I'm going to go over a number of subjects. First and foremost, as predicted, I don't know how many times on this channel, the Memorandum of Understanding between the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran is no longer in place as of this moment in time. Strikes have occurred back and forth, and the United States of America now seems to be geared towards neutralizing Iran's ability to control or exert influence over the Strait of Hormuz through military means. Now, I've multiple times on this channel, I have outlined my strategies and my favorite strategies and my favorite methodologies pertaining to how to deal with Iran militarily. So I will not repeat those today. You can watch them back on this channel. What I will say is that once again it has shown that there are no grounds for diplomatic endeavors between the Western world and the Islamic Republic. The Islamic Republic, one must understand this very thoroughly. The Islamic Republic was built upon ideological fundamentals that are, in their eyes, in their perception, non-negotiable. And various endeavors they've undertaken within the past few decades were in part to fulfill those ideological fundamentals, the ideological objectives. Spawn from those ideological fundamentals, the very pillars upon which the Islamic Revolution occurred in 1979. No diplomatic endeavors alone will prove to be sufficient in order to deter the Islamic Republic from their course, in order to persuade them to hold their nuclear program, to hold their ballistic missile program, to stop funding and sponsoring and training and supporting the axis of resistance throughout the Middle East and beyond, and to stop them from exerting influence, at least to some degree, over the Strait of Hormuz. We are at a point now where military action needs to be sufficient in order to bring about a new reality, meaning that we might look at a military campaign that will last longer than the latest round of fighting, to put it mildly. And it all comes down to the strategies employed by CENTCOM, how far the United States is willing to go. Are they willing to go at it themselves, or do they wish for other allies to join the fray? All of this remains to be seen, but we will be looking at a prolonged military campaign if the United States of America is indeed serious this time around in achieving their operational and, more importantly, their strategic objectives, which primarily being prevent Iran from exerting any form of influence over the Strait of Hormuz, which will be a tall order in and all by itself. Look for my previous videos on this channel, look them back, watch them, and let me know what you think in the comment section. Or if you see any topic or see any anything that I've said that you like or that you would like me to discuss more in depth or more in detail, leave a like, leave a comment, and let me know. So that brings us to my next topic of today, which is the Lebanese theater, where the trilateral framework between the Lebanese government, Israel and the United States seems to be coming well into effect. According to the latest intelligence, the LAF, the Lebanese Armed Forces, have now deployed to one or at max two pilot zones predetermined within the trilateral framework, where it now becomes their duty and responsibility to keep those pilot zones secure and disarm Hezbollah in the process. Now, this can be seen as some sort of a general repetition, especially on Israel's side. What Israel wants to get from this is some sort of guarantees, or at the very least a certain confidence on Lebanon's side that they are indeed both willing and capable of addressing the problem that Hezbollah poses south of the Litani River. At the very least, I'm not even talking about north of the river as of this moment in time. And that's what the Israelis like to see, because only then will it be feasible for Israel to start withdrawing from strategic points within the south of Lebanon, obviously. However, the Lebanese government has made some concerning comments recently. They have commented saying that They hope to cooperate with Hezbollah to the fullest extent possible. They don't seek any struggle or any dispute with Hezbollah. They do not wish to incite a civil war. And all of that is all well and good. But here's the thing that the Lebanese government needs to understand. Hezbollah will not disarm willingly. It has said so before. It said it was willing to rip all life from the streets of Lebanon, to start a devastating civil war, if only to safeguard their own interests and their own ambitions. So they have no interest in disarming willingly. They have no interest of cooperating with the Lebanese government if it means that their interests will no longer be taken into account. Now, the Lebanese armed forces is concerned that indeed, if they go through with this disarmament en masse, on scale, that will indeed trigger a civil dispute. Here is the problem that the Lebanese government has. For years now, ever since the latest flare-up in the Hezbollah-Israel conflict, the Lebanese government has called for an Israeli withdrawal from territory, saying that the Hezbollah problem, the Hezbollah issue is a Lebanese problem, it should be solved by the Lebanese. Well, that's all well and good, but then the Lebanese should be both willing and capable of solving it. Now the Israelis have agreed, okay, we are going to withdraw, but you have to come in and you have to do the work that we are doing now. Now, are you willing and capable of doing that? At first, the Lebanese government has said yes, especially during negotiations and any diplomatic endeavors related to these issues. However, now that push comes to shove, they're starting to back down. They're starting to be cautious again. And what the Lebanese government rather needs to understand is that there are no clean options here. They either combat Hezbollah themselves, or they shut up and let the Israelis do it. One thing or the other. Hezbollah needs to go. The Israelis will not condone a Hezbollah that will continue to be able to threaten northern Israeli communities, as they will not tolerate any resurgence of Hamas that will be against the safeguarding of Israeli interests and Israel's national security. That isn't going to change. 7 October 2023 changed a lot of things, and it changed Israel's approach relating to the problems and the threat it faces within the Middle East. And they've taken a very hardline stance, which to a certain extent is very understandable. Any country, any citizen of any country anywhere, in my opinion, would like to see the government doing whatever it takes to safeguard the security of its own people. So that's the predicament that the Lebanese government now finds itself in. You want this to be a Lebanese problem that's being solved by the Lebanese, then you, as the Lebanese government, as the Lebanese armed forces, must solve it. You do not wish to solve it, or you're incapable of solving it, then you have to allow a third party to do the dirty work for you. Now, of course, there are a lot of hooks, a lot of perspectives, a lot of different angles to this predicament. Obviously, the problem of an issue of corruption within the Lebanese government, the infiltration of Hezbollah agents, of Hezbollah sympathizers within Lebanese governmental frameworks. Obviously, this has long since been a problem, especially now that Iran is trying to keep Hezbollah alive to the fullest extent possible. We should not be surprised to see a more heavy exertion of Iranian influence within Lebanese governmental frameworks apart from Hezbollah. So these campaigns will most certainly be bolstered and ramped up. And that's something that the Lebanese armed forces and the Lebanese government in general must be prepared for. If you want it to be a Lebanese problem, then make sure that your country is both willing and capable to address said problem. Now, let's talk about the European theater for a little bit, the Ukrainian theater. Previously, I believe it was on one of my latest episodes, I've discussed a little bit, I've talked a little bit about the Ukrainians' long-range strike campaign targeting Russian infrastructure, Russia's defense industrial base, Russia's energy industry. And it seems to be becoming more efficient by the day. Russia is slowly but steadily losing its hold on Crimea. What we're seeing from the Ukrainians now is not just the unlocking of a new military capability, but the ability to utilize that military capability in a very strategic and sustainably operational and tactical manner. Right? We're not just looking at blind volleys of rockets and missiles, like the Iranians, for example, shot at Israel and other Gulf states in the 12-day war and in the first round of fighting this year. what we're seeing is a very targeted campaign, targeting not only Russia's infrastructure or defense industrial base, but also its railways, its supply routes, its logistical networks within the occupied territories. And that's a very important development. Why? Because now, first and foremost, Russia's air defense deficiencies are being exposed. Russia's air defense umbrella is not as tight as many deemed it to be. And Ukraine's long-range campaign is exposing that. So obviously that puts a dent in Russia's rhetoric and information campaigns. But on a tactical, operational, and to a certain extent strategic level, what this will result in is that Russia will need to displace some of its most notable air defense platforms and systems to these occupied territories, away or back at home, away from the front lines, which obviously further halts Russian plans for large-scale advancement, and might provide Ukrainians with an opportunity to counter-advance, or at the very least create more favorable conditions along the front line to allow for that development in the near future. So what we're seeing in broad terms is slowly but steadily Ukraine is starting to gain momentum, and Russia is losing theirs. Their economy is crumbling further. Gasoline, huge gasoline shortages across the country. The defense industrial base has a hard time keeping up. Demographically, socially, problems start to mount. Russia's rhetoric is falling. Its information campaigns are slowly but steadily falling. So all of this hints at a slow but steady changing of the tides that Russia could address in a number of ways. However, none of which will probably yield any short-term, or at the very least sustainable short-term results. Russia went about this entire war wrong. They failed to properly plan for it. They failed to properly mobilize for it. They underestimated their adversaries. They underestimated Ukrainian grit. They underestimated the consistency of Western support for Ukraine, and they overestimated the functionality of its own military platforms. And now Russia is starting to pay the price for that. So if you are the Western world, what you would want to be doing, if you want to look at what Ukraine is doing, what is Ukraine is doing at most successful, most efficiently, obviously you want to learn from that and integrate that into your own readiness doctrines and methodologies. But also you want to use that intelligence, you want to use that information to provide Ukraine with the aid that it needs. Don't blindly give them weapon systems. Don't blindly give them defense budgets or funds or weapon platforms. Look at what they're doing. Look at their current modus operandi, their current operational, tactical, and strategic objectives, and aim to support those in a functional and concrete manner. And obviously, the latest NATO summit also addressed this very issue and addressed this very topic. So what we're seeing is a slowly but steadily that Ukraine is gaining momentum, and thereby the Western world with it. The more taxing this war becomes for Russia, the less efficient they will be in any future confrontation with NATO. At the very least, their ability to wage a large-scale, sustained, prolongated war of attrition. The last topic that I want to discuss today is the Pacific, where Japan, for the first time since World War II, is once again building up its own intelligence agency with the help of its Western partners. Now, this stands as a very intriguing and interesting development, and it shows Japan's commitment not just to its own national security, but to regional security in general. Japan, as I've said multiple times on this channel, could be a huge strategic partner, not just for the United States of America, but for the Western world in general. They have made rapid and very efficient military developments in recent years. Their doctrines have been altered significantly, and now they're going to back that up with a concrete security and intelligence framework that can make them more efficient in safeguarding and securing their own national interests and that of the region abroad. I will, in the coming days, will do a strategy breakdown pertaining to the situation within the Pacific, more particularly Chinese strategy pertaining to the first and second island chains. So please stay tuned for that. It's probably going to be recorded this week and then uploaded either at the end of this week or at the beginning of next week. So please stay tuned for that. The Pacific will be a very significant theater at the end of this decade and at the beginning of the next decade. I predict. China has become an increasingly emboldened player, an increasingly strategic player, and really what we're seeing is they assuming more of a mentoring leadership, or at the very least mediator role within the anti-Western bloc, the adversary entente, as well as I refer to them as the Four Horsemen, but more particularly the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, BRICS, as well as their bilateral relationships with their neighboring country. China is a player to watch for the future, as I've said multiple times on this channel. And in many ways, I will talk more about this in another clip later this week, as I've just said. But what will be very interesting is that we are probably going to see a lot of similarities between the kind of warfare the US is waging now in the Strait of Hormuz and the warfare it will be waging pertaining to the first and second island chains within the Pacific, countering Chinese acts of aggression potentially in the future. So this is a good general repetition for the United States, especially if it will at some point involve boots on the ground, albeit in a limited capacity, focused on the islands that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps utilizes within the Strait of Hormuz and Persian Gulf, such as the Qasem, Greater Tooms and Abu Musa Islands. So yeah, it's interesting to see how these two kind of conflicts, or potential conflicts rather, will compare and will align. So, like I said, I'll probably do a strategy breakdown. I will do another strategy breakdown in the coming week or in the coming weeks. I'm not yet sure. Please bear with me in that regard. About Russian information campaigns, and then particularly Russian information campaigns pertaining to its advancement or alleged advancement within the Ukrainian theater. Recently, we've heard very bold statements coming from the Russian front about the seizing of Konstantinivka in Ukraine, which in practice proved to be nothing but a vacant and superficial infiltration campaign to serve rhetorical informational purposes. Yes, the Konstantinivka theater is heavily contested as of this moment in time. However, Ukrainian troops still enjoy a majority there, and Russia has in no way, shape or form completely seized their territory. And I will use that as an example to illustrate and expose Russia's rhetoric and information campaigns, and how that can influence the rhetoric within media platforms, the rhetoric within Western societies, and to a certain extent influence Western decision-making pertaining to the Russian threat and the Ukrainian theater. All of that is coming soon. For now, I thank you very much for taking the time to watch this clip. As I've said, a lot has happened. I've tried to summarize it as best as possible in such a short amount of time. There will be more uploads coming. I'm going to do multiple strategy breakdowns from pertaining to the Pacific theater, pertaining to the Strait of Hormuz, pertaining to the Ukrainian theater. So all that is coming soon. If you could please leave a like, if you could please subscribe to my channel. I'm still trying to grow this channel to the best of my abilities. Like I've said on numerous occasions, I'm in no way, shape or form a proper editor. I'm in no way, shape or form a proper videographer. I'm a novice at this game, this YouTube social media podcasting game. But what I do have is a lot of insights and a lot of expertise and a lot of experience pertaining to the geopolitical sphere, which I'm very passionate to share with those interested. Once again, thank you very much, and I hope to see you all again next time. Bye bye.